Hey, everybody, it's Cindy here, and it's time for another Life Makeovers podcast. And I'm so excited that you're here listening today. And the idea behind this podcast is to create intimate conversations with women, with people, I will say, in case someday we don't have women on, and to create conversations where they share some of the things they've been through on their own personal journeys and things that have worked well for them, and just with the whole hope that we all feel less alone because we realize everybody's got a story. Everybody's got a story. Everybody's been around the block a time or two or three or 10 at this point in their lives, and that we have wisdom that we have to share with one another. So sit back, relax. You're going to love my guest today. She's one of my favorite people on earth. Her name is Michelle Kaplan. And Michelle, oh my gosh, there's so much to say about you, but we've known each other for like 10 years now.
I know. I don't even know where that chunk of time goes, but yes, thank you so much for having me on your show.
Oh, thank you so much for being here. We met back in the days we were training pretty intensely with Jack Canfield, learning his success principles and how to apply those in our lives personally and professionally. And that was an intense training over a year's time, where we went 3 times, I guess, to California or Arizona, or where all did we go? And gosh, we became close friends.
Yes, definitely.
And we've made lots of memories since then.
Yes.
I admire you so much. So what would you like our listeners to know about you right now? What do you got going on?
Oh my gosh. So I work in human resources. I do really focusing on organizational effectiveness and leadership development. And I'm also in my heart a poet. I'm a poet. I've written 2 books on poetry, and the 3rd one's coming out next year. And so that's super exciting. Yeah, and I love the whole creative expression. So I'm actually in my midlife, I've gotten involved with theater, more behind the scenes as an investor and a co-producer. And I'm currently co-producing a show called Harmony that was just off Broadway, music by Barry Manilow. And it's original music. So it's kind of like this whole other thing. I mean, I was the kid who I can't sing and I can't dance and I can't act. So as a kid, I would audition for these shows because I so wanted to perform. And it was like, next, like, I don't even think I got like a note out. I mean, maybe I was like in one show when I went to camp, probably because it's like, all right, maybe we feel sorry for her, but I so wanted to be on the stage, and it was just so not my journey in this life. So I find it fascinating in midlife to have this whole other thing develop, where I do get to be with theater people who are so creative and just like amazingly talented, and get to watch and then just also feel part of the group.
Oh my gosh, that's so exciting. Yeah, now you're rubbing elbows. You can't sing, but you're rubbing elbows with Barry Manilow. I mean, when you said that picture to me about you and Barry Manilow standing there together,
yeah.
I mean, I love Barry Manilow. Like,
everybody loves Barry Manilow.
Yeah, who doesn't love Barry Manilow? If you don't love Barry Manilow, don't even keep listening to the Just kidding. But no, but you said something that really, I think, is really important. And it sounds like when you were a kid, you were passionate about the arts and passionate about all these things, the creative arts, and trying to find your space in that. And it didn't work out in those ways. But in midlife, sometimes a lot of women will say to me, I don't know what my purpose is. I don't know what I'm passionate about. And I'll say, think back when you were a kid. What did you love to do? Or what did you really want to do when you were a kid? And it's amazing how that's what they connect with now in their 40s, 50s, or 60s. And it sounds like you have found your version of this by becoming a producer and an investor in theater. Wow.
Yeah, no, it's really been so interesting because it's like, I never really thought about the business of theater. I mean, I don't know, I just go to shows growing up, and I live right outside New York City. I'm in New Jersey. So we would go with my family to see shows. And I never really thought about it. And through my writing, through my passion for writing, is then I in my head, I just was like seeing a script come about. And I don't really know much about script writing other than it's a different genre. And so I need to learn about that. Like I don't know anything about script writing. So I, really, that was the path that led me into this whole theater world. And it's amazing to be involved with so much talent. But you're right, you have to kind of really find your niche in the sense like, wow, all the skills for my 30-year career in human resources and helping businesses grow and succeed, creating highly effective teams, better decision making, all the kind of thing is just now at a Broadway show, which is like a startup. It's the same type of, feel to it. So it's nice to, yes, lend my strengths where I can do towards the success of a show.
That is so cool. And I think that makes me want to say to everybody listening, if you're unhappy or unsatisfied professionally or just looking for something different, think about, the skills you already have, the things you've already done that you've done well or love doing, and ask yourself how those can translate to other areas in your life where you can find a different expression of those. Because I think sometimes people feel stuck, in their career and they don't know what to do, but they need to do something and they feel like they need to do something different. And you've been through that.
Yep, exactly. And for me, it was just like following the breadcrumbs. I mean, you and I are both, right, are very goal-oriented people, right? I have vision boards, I have to-do lists, I have multiple to-do lists. I have 90-day goals and all these things. And the part about working in theater was never on any list or anywhere. It was just kind of like, this feels right. So I don't know what is going to come from it, but let's just kind of move in that direction and kind of see, so it's like, I feel like in midlife, it's like I'm learning really to trust that voice within that does know the answers, right? And that, even though it makes no sense in your head, because everyone's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I don't really know, but this is a big yes. So we're just going to move in that direction. And I feel that's what's different than when I was younger. I mean, it was kind of more like a crapshoot. I think when I was younger, if I did it or not, and now it's like, it doesn't really have to make sense. It makes sense to me. And that's enough.
Yeah. It's like that absolute yes you said, it's when we feel that stirring inside where we go, oh my gosh, yes, like, yes. I don't know how, I don't know the details. I don't even know for sure what I'm doing, but I know I must go in this direction. And so then we lean into it, right? I love that success principle of Jack's, just lean into it. Like the breadcrumbs you said, like pick up the first breadcrumb, the first indicator, the first piece, and then pick up the next piece that unfolds. And then voila, all of a sudden you've got this award-winning, may I say, musical that you're involved in.
Yeah, no, it's exactly. And it's just like, with the whole midlife, it's like, it's interesting because it's like, I think people see you at a certain age, the perception. And I feel like I'm just like getting going. Like this is the beginning. Like you have enough confidence and experience and knowledge under your belt, to kind of make some key decisions. And so I find it fascinating where it's like, sometimes in some corporations, it's kind of like, okay, what are you doing with the rest of your career, or how many more years you plan on working? And I'm like, I don't think I was that one that ever kind of said like, oh, I want to retire early or be retired by 60. I mean, but you could be doing different things with work. And I'm just more like, oh, I'm not planning on stopping like anytime soon. So I find that interesting how other people perceive middle age, especially middle-aged women. And where they're going with their careers versus how I'm kind of perceiving myself.
Well, I think it's a reflection of the work that you've done, honestly, the personal growth work that you've done, because I happen to know a lot of women who get to this point in their 40s, 50s, 60s, whatever, 50s especially, and think it's all downhill from here. And they feel washed up and finished, when you and I feel like we're kind of just getting started again, like our second chapter or whatever. People have different words for it, but And I know it wasn't always unicorns and rainbows in your life either. I mean, you've been through some really difficult things.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you want to talk about those today or not. I mean, it's up to you.
Sure.
But
Yeah, this is,
I think
yeah,
I want listeners to understand that my life and those I speak to, it's been pretty and it's been ugly and it's been pretty ugly sometimes, difficult, stressful, that we didn't
yeah.
just wake up and draw the lucky card to feel this good right now, as good as you and I feel right now. So what's,
Mm.
what's been the most difficult part of midlife for you, do you think?
Well, the thing going back, I mean, before midlife is, I would say, when I was 37, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. That was pretty hard. And that really, I feel was the end of something and the beginning of, a lot of work, right? With any relationship, even with yourself, it takes a lot of work and accountability and, communication and things like that. But that really threw me for a loop. I mean, I went through all the, several surgeries and chemo and radiation and all that. And then as a result of all that, that did save my life, I, was not able to have children. And at the time I didn't have any children. So, that was the time where it was the voice, that first really strong voice within that was kind of like, okay, it could just look different. I mean, but you could still be a mom. And that's when I started the adoption process and adopted my daughter. And she came home at 8 months. And this was like 2 years out. So becoming a mom at 40, it's definitely different than being younger, but it's like, but she came home at 8 months old and, she's turning 16 next week. So it's like just been her and I, which also has its pros and cons, I mean, I can raise her any way I want, but it's all on me.
All on you. So yeah, single parenting. And then in a few years, you're going to have an empty nest. I hate to tell you this.
I know. I'm just kind of coming to see that vision because it's coming closer and closer. And I almost feel like some of the work that I'm doing right now is like kind of setting me up for 2-3 years from now when it's like, my daughter does go off to school or whatever she decides to do. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love that you're saying that just like that, because people ask me all the time, how do you prepare for the empty nest or how do you deal with the empty nest? They're asking as they're packing their cars to take their kids to college. And I think it starts very early in life. Like, I think, when our children are babies, they would die without us. We are literally, they have to have our care or someone's care to live. Or they would die. Like, they need us for everything. But the typically 18 years or so is a great big long transition of them taking control of their lives. And so we let looser as we go along. And I think too, especially with moms, I find our lives are very defined by and consumed with our children's lives. I know mine was in many, many ways, probably not even 100% healthy, how much focus I put there. And I think one of the reasons I did that was because I was so unhappily married at the same time. And so I just thought, okay, as long as the kids are okay, we'll do everything for the kids.
Sure.
But anyway, the personal preparation for emptiness is to have a life of our own.
Yes.
And I think that's what you're talking about, is that you have this thing, this other baby you are growing in your life, this whole life with theater and your poetry and everything else that is so you, that you will transition even probably more into that with that open space and time that comes when she is off doing her thing, and you'll feel that that seamless shift in with that, because it's already there, it's already a big part of your life. And some women wait, until the kids are all gone and then go, okay, now what? And then
exactly. And it wasn't very conscious when I was doing it, but now looking back, it's like, maybe that's why I kept hearing yes, right? It's like, you don't really question, the voice within, it's just kind of, but now it totally, makes sense on that as we're kind of nearing that, because yeah, it's just going to be very different. I mean, especially with what you're talking about with the time. Like, I'm very aware right now of, okay, I got to be back at certain times. We have school activities, you're juggling so much. You're working full time, you're doing all this other work as well. So it's like, it's almost like I can't even imagine what all that free time would do, right? And things like that.
I cry every time I leave my children who are off living their lives. I do every time I miss them, but then I'm home and it's like, oh, I can kind of do whatever the heck I want whenever I want. I don't have to worry about anybody else. I mean, I'm in a relationship. I live with my fiance, but it's just different when it's not children, even young teenagers. So
yeah, I feel like I'm in between the continuum of okay, we're not going to keep her room exactly like a museum when she leaves, but also it's not going to be converted into an office like the next day. I'm somewhere in the middle.
Not the yoga room yet, right? She's gonna
there
have a place to sleep when she comes home.
Exactly.
They do come back, I must say, and sometimes they stay.
Right, I know. It's like, all right, I don't even know what to wish for. I wish for whatever's best.
Anyway, so I want to back up a second because you talked about, getting cancer in your late 30s and how it became a whole thing with the surgeries and the treatments and the this and the that, and then losing your fertility and all of that. But I love how you said, I always wanted to be a mother and I knew I still could be. It was just going to look different. So, what else can you say about that? I mean, just having, I guess, looking at life differently as a coping strategy or as a way to navigate those really difficult times, whatever they might be.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you're in like one of those types of situations, whether it's like it's an illness, injury, or some type of like major trauma event, it's like, I don't know, the way I describe it is like, you've already been to hell and you've somehow survived. So let's thrive now. It's like kind of like, it is a process for everybody and, being respectful of everyone's timeline on that. Because I mean, even like, October every year, is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And I'll have my moment of like, oh, wow, can't believe that was like 18 years ago already or something like that. You can go back there. You have those, like, I have more like visceral memories of the fall, like what, those types of things. Yes. So it's kind of like you've already, so it's almost like, what else would you do? Like, I don't know. It's like, why wouldn't you just kind of go for it? And that's where my mind was kind of like, I have nothing to lose. It's like, I'm not waiting for things. And so my daughter was adopted from Guatemala. And, I had a lot of rejection. That was not an easy process, not because I was single. I think China was the only country I was like, no, we're not, but just to be eligible to adopt, I was rejected because of my medical history, because it was only 1 year out. And they were, even in the US, they were like, absolutely not, like 5 years, right? Especially as a single parent. So I was just getting rejected right and left. I mean, that was like a 6-month process and full-time work, like trying to figure it out. And then that's where like the magic happens. It's like when you're really clear about what you want and it's not coming to you right away, whether that's a new job or whatever it is. And then I went to this like brunch and this, people are like, how's the adoption going? Right? Because we learned through Jack, right? That tell everybody what your goal is. And I was like, and I was like, almost like, like The Exorcist. I was like, not very well. Like, I was like, I don't want to talk about it. Not a good day, right? I was like,
thanks for asking.
Here, please take some more of these pastries I just made or brought, so, and then this like woman in the background who I didn't know was kind of like, well, my neighbor just adopted a little boy, from Guatemala. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, do you think she would speak with me? And the next day I spoke to her for 3
Breadcrumb.
hours.
Breadcrumb.
Breadcrumb.
Yep.
And I was like, and then I called her agency and they was like, sure, as long as your oncologist provides, when you adopt, any kind of inhibitions, go, between your finances, your medical, like everything. You have to be interviewed by social workers. Like it's a whole process. So, and so that's how it happened. So again, that wasn't even the easiest, but when you're clear about what you want, you stick to it until you figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah. And, I don't know who said it. Maybe many have said it, teachers over the years that I've listened to, and you probably have too, that have said, if you have the desire for something, like we're wired to desire certain things. And so if we have the desire, there is a way to fulfill it. Like there is a way. So we don't want to give up on our dreams or our desires or anything, because I'm wired to want certain things. I'm drawn to certain things. You're drawn to certain things. Everybody listening is drawn to their certain things. And there's a reason they are. There's a reason you were drawn to this or that, or there's a reason you knew instinctively, I am a mother. You tell me I don't have my fertility anymore. You tell me I almost am going to die of cancer. I've got news for you. I'm going to live and I'm going to be a mother. And then unfolded the whole thing. Meanwhile, little me being born in Guatemala and her mama can't take care of her for all her reasons. And wow. And then you meet this woman in this conversation that you didn't know.
Yep.
And she knew someone who knew someone. I mean, it's just, that is how life goes. It's always conspiring in our favor somehow.
Totally agree. In fact, like most days I wake up and kind of say like, I wonder what's going to be happening today. Like what magic's going to be happening today, because I really feel like you will see what you're looking for or what you believe in. So in a sense, it could be right away or it could be like the end of the day. And I'm like, oh, see, there was magic, right? There, like whether it was like a synchronistic kind of moment or that kind of like, right? Are there really coincidences in life? It could be something small, but to me, it's big, like where that, right? And so, I don't know, it just makes it much more fun instead of, especially if I'm feeling very stressed. I mean, we all like, in fact, like 2 weeks ago, I was like totally overwhelmed with everything I had to do and things like that. And then you're just like, all right, let me just take a step back here, right? This is supposed to be fun. So what is, right? And then it's like kind of reprioritizing and regrouping because this is not fun right now, right? And so, and we will all catch ourselves in that, but it's best to then work your way out of that hole. So for sure.
Yeah, I think it's the blessing and the curse of being entrepreneurial, right? It's that we're very creative people. We're very visionary people. So it's like, ooh, this, ooh, that, ooh, shiny object over here, ooh, shiny object over there. Wanting to try new things and interested, but then all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, I'm in the middle of 15 projects or something. I'm like, what? So, I'm balancing the whole thing. And
it's true. When I was younger, when I would think of like middle age, I would always, I just thought I would know it. Like I'd have my act together and I would know everything. Like this is like, when you think about your 50s, you're like, oh, they got it so together. Like they figured it all out.
Right? They made it look
exactly. Easy. Yeah, exactly. And now, I'm just like, the older I get, the realize I know like less and less. I'm just like, and I think I'm okay with that. Yeah. I think I'm much more okay with it than I was before.
Yeah. And when you were watching, the older generations of women in your life when you were younger, like what else did you think? Did you soak anything in like, oh, this is what it's like to be older, this is what it's like to be, I don't know, what did you think about?
I don't know. I mean, it's a really good question, Cindy. It's kind of like, I don't know, part of that is like generational as well. I just think like, most of the people I knew when I was younger, right, most were married still. I don't think, I think later on, people really, the divorce rate really went up, but I guess I thought it'd be more like, taken care of. Like I'm like on my own and I really do like that. There's nothing wrong with that. What's that, Cindy?
I said, no, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. No, there isn't, but I guess,
We didn't have a lot of models for that when we were younger,
yeah,
because like you said, most people, at least in my world too, most of them were married. Men and women were married. And
yeah,
yeah, my mother and my grandmother, my grandmothers and aunts were taking care of their husbands, their children, their
yep,
grandchildren. Some of them were working also, or farming full time, or working full time outside the home or in the home. Um, and I saw a lot of women as very dutiful, like, you know, dutiful, taking care of whatever, the family
yeah,
farm, the business, or the children, or their parents, or it just very service oriented, and didn't seem, you know, I don't know. I think it was just what they did. Like I don't remember seeing them all going, yeah, this is what I'm doing, or
yeah,
complaining. Like, just, this is what we do. This is,
exactly. I think it was like the home was their business. It's like that
yeah.
was their work, and they treated it as such. And so, I mean, our household was growing up was very well run and organized and loving and all of that. But it's just different. I mean, I just even find it interesting, even like with trying to find like carpools, right? It's like people like,
Yeah.
why doesn't your generation like carpool? And it's like,
Yeah.
we're all just running around. It's hard. I
Yeah.
mean, it would make it easier, but it's like you got to coordinate all that. And so sometimes it's just like we just do it. I don't know. It's a different time. So I find it, I just think that, looking at older women, I just thought they just had it all together. They looked it for sure. So
They
again, who
really
knows what's going on,
Yeah.
underneath that whole thing.
Yeah.
But I don't.
It's a different, very different world we live in, for sure. Yeah, because yeah, I mean, I think about my mother and my grandmothers. They were cleaning house every week. My mom and my grandma cleaned their house every week from ceiling to floor. And I do not do that. And I don't live in filth, but I don't do that. Like, I could never
No.
spend every Saturday morning cleaning the whole house. No way. I mean, we do a good thorough cleaning once a month, and then we keep things up, So
Yeah.
we don't live in filth, but that's not like, if my mother would have skipped a Saturday cleaning, she probably would have felt like she was bad or something, like that was wrong or something. You know what I mean? Now I'm speaking for her. She's not here to speak for herself, but it was such an expectation, or I don't know. And I don't know. Yeah, it's just a different focus or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
A lot of people
exactly.
in my generation have housekeepers too.
Yeah.
So hire housekeepers. So, I don't think our mothers and grandmothers would have hired housekeepers.
No,
And
no, I think we delegate, where's our time best spent and things like that, for sure, for sure.
yeah, it's just a different path. Wow. So now when you think about, some of your best, what's helped you the most through all the transitions you've been through in the middle of your life, I mean, you've mentioned several of them here. What's really kept you going, or really been inspirational to you as you've navigated through all of it?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a writer. I mean, when I was younger, I would write,
Mhm.
I write poetry, but I didn't even know what I was writing. I just write, so I think what's really helped me is journaling. And I
Mm,
do it early in the mornings, where I'm fresh, and I just kind of make sense of it all. And at
mm,
first I was doing like streams of consciousness, which a lot of people do, right? They just write for the sake of
yeah.
writing. And I would look at these pages that I wrote and be like, okay, no wonder I'm going crazy here. Like, because there's a visual representation of all these like random thoughts in my head. And
Yeah.
then one day, like the words, like certain words and phrases like came off the pages.
Mm,
And I thought enough to take them and write them on a separate piece of paper.
mhm,
And I called them my little vignettes, my little stories,
mm.
until someone mentioned it was like, I think you're writing poetry. I'm like, yeah, okay. Like, I'm not trained in literature or like writing specific poetry. It's just, I just how I kind of express myself. But I
Mhm.
kept it to myself for years. That was how I journaled. And it almost felt like the energy that and all the angst or questioning or even positive things like happy things were like like going on the paper. Like it just felt like I just felt calmer after. And then I started sharing some of what I wrote, even in a work corporate setting. And, it just changes. It's like it gets you out of your head and more into your heart. You're having totally different conversations. So that I really, and that's actually something I'll be starting in the new year is doing, some just online journaling with people to, you don't have to write poetry. It's just writing for the sake of writing. You don't have to be, you don't have to do anything with it. You don't have to write a book, or it could be the start of something. But I just think it's like, finding your thing, that, and then working out. I need to just physically get out some of the energy. And so I walk most days. I did buy a Peloton during the pandemic. I and an air fryer, as well. But I did. So I don't go to a gym anymore at this moment, but I just need to be physically moving and it really just calms my mind as well.
Yeah, so you're really a proponent of the mind-body connection, aren't you? And the emotions and everything.
Yeah.
So when we take care of the body, we're taking care of the mind, we're taking care of the emotions. So that movement, and it doesn't have to be fancy movement. I mean, I think sometimes women, they're frustrated with their bodies, they're frustrated emotionally, and they don't know what to do with themselves. And they think they have to go lift weights for an hour and be in a 3-hour class and, become this whatever athlete. And it's like, no, just move, go walk down the neighborhood, and it will clear your head and it will ease your mind. And your body will thank you for that movement. All the systems in our bodies love that. And like you're writing, you're journaling, it's an outlet, right? It's an outlet, it's an expression.
Yes.
Energy. Our emotions can be pent up energy in our bodies. Our strong thinking patterns can get kind of trapped up in there, and just moving or finding some outlet of expression that feels good can really be healthy. I know I have friends who embroider or sew or do all kinds of knitting or things with their hands, or paint, not to be painters, but they just paint to let out, just that expression. And so
because I mean the clients I work with, it's really about creative expression for self-discovery. And self-discovery leads to transformation. So it could even be in a business set. It could be creative, very strategic in the business world. And whatever kind of comes out. I mean, that's why I post my poetry most days on Instagram and LinkedIn and Facebook. And what's really interesting is that the random, people it's random topics, and it's it's kind of whatever's coming up. So it's not always autobiographical, but it definitely is always personal in the sense it's my observation. It might not be happening to me, but it's my, so for instance, can I read you one that I just kind of wrote, if that's okay?
Oh, listen up. If you are multitasking listeners, stop everything. She's going to read one of her poems. I'm so excited. Okay, which is this in one of the first 2 books, or is this one that's going to be
no, this one I actually just posted. So we're recording this around Halloween time. And this again, I write, it usually takes about 10-15 minutes to write this stuff, but these are the kind of themes that I think would resonate with the folks listening and stuff. So I called it Trick or Treat. So what's the trick or treat? So so it said, so I wrote, I'll be happy when I get that new job, I have more money, lose the weight, find my soulmate. And the trick of it all is getting so caught up in the treat that awaits us that we don't love the life we're living now, as we wait for someone else to hand out the sweetness for a moment instead of the hallowed ween of happiness continuously. So what if you were happy right now, as is. Trick or treat, you decide.
Oh, oh my gosh, I love it. Oh, I just, ah.
Yeah, I was really having that moment of kind of like, gosh, I mean, I love working towards what's next, but sometimes I get so caught up in what's next that I'm not even really fully appreciative of
Yeah.
now. And that's where all that gratitude, right? Like the gratitude of now will bring me back. Like what instead of focusing what I don't have, what do I have? So again, you need those constant reminders, at least I do, you know.
Oh, for sure. Well, and with thinking about in the middle of our lives, it's like if we just keep waiting for when this happens or this happens I mean, when are we going to stop waiting? Like, what are we
Right.
waiting for now? I'm 55. Like, I don't need to wait anymore for anything because this is it. This is it. The time is now. I mean, and we don't know. Will we live to be 100? Will we live to be 70? Will we live to be 58? I mean, what are,
Yeah.
waiting for this to happen or this to happen first or that to happen or this to be happy is like, that's a setup for disaster. So yeah,
Yeah.
love what you're saying. We want to love what is, as Byron Katie teaches. Love
Yes.
what is, and then
She's
be
great.
eager and curious about what else could be, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And actually I have another poem on that too. I just have to kind of like, you know, what's so funny is that because this is what I really do. I mean, I don't really read what I write most of the time. I don't reread it. It's like almost like when I write it and put it out in the world,
Mhm.
like I'm good. But this one I do read most days. And maybe it'll help people who are listening, but it's called If I Was Lovable, right? Like when I'm enough, right? When I'm worthy, when I'm like, right, when like enough already, right? To your point,
Yeah.
right? So it goes like this. If I was lovable, what would I wear? What would I eat? What music would I listen to? Where would I go? Who would I hang out with? How would I show up? What would get my attention? What would I act on? And what would I ignore? And would it look like today? And that
Oh,
helps me decide a lot about what I'm doing in each moment.
those are fantastic questions to ask. And because of what do I hear more than anything? Women think they're not enough.
I
Why?
know.
They're more than enough. My gosh, we are more than enough. Well, I want everybody to love and accept themselves just as they are. So those powerful questions in that poem really, it's like, well, what would you be doing different if you were enough? Like, would you wear something different? Would you eat something different? Would you hang out with somebody different? What would you be doing? I love it. Oh,
Yeah. And where would it stay the same? So in a sense, it's like, where
yeah.
have you kind of mastered that, because there's so many different
Right.
parts of your life. And it's like, just to notice it. So I kind of say that to myself most days now about what would I wear, like, even though like, I mean, I work from home most days now, everything's remote and via Zoom. And I still like, I was definitely guilty of the same yoga pants, sweatshirt,
Oh,
once the pandemic, I mean, I had to like throw it out. I was like, I can't even look at that without being traumatized, at least getting some reaction. But now it's like, no, I'm going to just get dressed for me, like, regardless. I mean, I will see people like virtually, but it's like, it's
yeah.
okay. It's like to do it. So, like, when is it enough? I know. And was really my question, which I don't know, maybe it's a continuous, for me, it's an ongoing
Yeah.
um that whole perfection and all of that. It's just it feels it's impossible, so good luck. I that's what I say to myself, good luck, Michelle. 'Cause
Oh, perfection is impossible.
perfectionism, like, good luck
Oh,
with that.
what is that even? It's not even, we couldn't even, I
I
sat
don't know.
once with about 12 people and it was a spiritual class group we were taking or whatever. And we talked about body image, in midlife. And we had 12
Mm-hmm.
different body sizes there: tall, short, really super thin, really much heavier. some very muscular, some very stocky, some, hourglass, some apples, some pears, I mean, there was everything. And we challenged ourselves to ask ourselves which was the perfect body. Which one of us had the perfect body? And there
Seriously.
wasn't there, we either all were or none of us were. Like there's no one, big bone, small bone, which, whatever,
Yeah.
And so it's the same with everything. Like we're all enough because we're who we are. We're just creatively and uniquely made. And you're you, I'm me, and every listener is themselves. And that's enough. That's all we have to do is just be ourselves and be the best version of ourselves, whatever that is. And some days the best version is not as pretty as other days, maybe, right?
Yeah, right.
But
Exactly.
it's all
I
okay.
think, yeah, no, I think I noticed, and I notice a lot with just doing work in different theaters and meeting different people, really being out of my element, right? That whole imposter syndrome of kind of like, what do I say I do with these people? Like, I'm like, I'm a writer, right? Or what am I, I'm a co-producer, but it's just so fascinating. What I notice the most, especially with women, is their smile. It's like, are they making eye contact? Which really is coming from like a certain confidence. There's like an authenticity. And who isn't attracted to somebody who's like feeling comfortable in their shoes, So, and they're all different body types, and like, whether it's haircut, like whether their hair is done or not, they could be all like, casual or super dressed up. But that's what I notice, I think, the most. And then someone will say like, oh, I like her jacket or this. And I'm like, I didn't even really notice it, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
Like her, like just how she approached was really enough. Yeah. It was like kind of dazzling almost. So.
Yeah. It's like everybody think about, think of people that we know who, when they walk in a room, you just, there's an energy they come in the room with,
Yeah.
And it's not any certain energy. It's their authenticity coming through. And that's powerful. So when we can just show up as ourselves, authentic, genuine, it's powerful. It's a lovely, powerful thing. And it's attractive. And so I guess I would say part of what I feel like you're saying is that encouraging our listeners just to show up in this season of their lives as themselves. And if they don't like something about themselves, there's ways to change anything. If you really can't, you don't like something about yourself, it's possible to change it. I've changed things about myself I don't like over the years, and I will continue to look at those things, but not in a criticism way, not like, oh, what's the matter with me, but more like, I just want to keep growing in these areas. Like I want to be more patient or more, I don't know,
Yeah. Or you change your perspective, right? Something's got to change.
Yeah. Yes. Yes, exactly. Exactly. Oh my gosh, we could talk all day.
I know. Wait, what are we doing after?
Don't worry, listeners, we won't, but we could.
They're like, oh my God, please make it stop. Right.
This is a juicy conversation. Wow, I can't thank you enough. Is there anything else you really want to share in terms of your wisdom about midlife or anything? Or do you want to show us your books? Or
oh, you're so sweet. No, it's like, I really just, from like a wisdom perspective, I think I don't know if I have any wisdom to kind of offer, but one thing I would say is that, if people do want to see my daily postings, again, it's most days, on Instagram, it's the Michelle Kaplan. There's a lot of Michelle Kaplans out there, so I had to kind of like change.
The Michelle Kaplan.
The Michelle Kaplan. We sound so like, oh my gosh, right? Or it's Michelle Kaplan on Facebook, or Michelle J. Kaplan on LinkedIn. But I think those were like these little glimpses of the wisdom. For me comes early in the morning with my writings. It almost feels like a download. I'm receiving something, I'm writing it down, and then I kind of post it out. And what's so beautiful is mostly, people share, in the comment section, but a lot of times I get private messages from people kind of saying like, this is what stood out for me. This is how it helped me think about, my situation, which is totally different details. So I'm fascinated how the details can be different, but the themes are universal.
Yeah.
And so, because really at the end of the day, we're all poets in the way we live our lives. And so it's kind of like, that's why I think it resonates with people so much. So yeah, I mean, that's how I'd really probably end it. If you want to get some more glimpses of it, check it out. That would be great. Thank you.
Oh gosh, well, I highly encourage all of you out there to give her poetry a look for sure. Her books are called and then the other one is Burst and Flourish too.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So my website is www.michellejkaplan.com, Kaplan with a K, and 2 L's with Michelle. And there, if you are interested in the books or any more information about me, you could check it out there on the website. That'd be great.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much, Cindy. It was so great hanging with you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time and all your wisdom and your sharing. And this is a great conversation. And yeah, I just love you to pieces. So thank you so much. And all you listeners out there, thank you for being with us today. And please keep coming back for more. And feel free to share this podcast with others, subscribe and follow. And if you want more information about what else I have going on as well, you can go to my website at cindydwhitmer.com. So I will talk to you again soon. Thanks for being here.